How does a brand win on Faire?
I get that question a lot. We're the largest online wholesale platform that connects consumer brands with independent retail stores. When I joined back in 2019, I thought we were big, doing a few $1 million in sales. But today we have over 100,000 vendors, hundreds of thousands of retailers. Everything that we do is in pursuit of helping these small businesses be more successful. And this core belief that it is better to live in a world where there are these small, cute boutiques and restaurants on the main streets in America versus these like strip malls and banks and what we call like the sea of sameness. There are just foundational things you need to do to set your business up for success on Faire. Optimize and invest in your shop page. Like those little things that I would have never thought to recommend to a brand because I just didn't think of it. And then you see a brand do it and you're like, oh, actually, that's extremely powerful.
Hey, business besties, welcome back to Female Founder World. I'm Jasmine, I'm the host of the show, and today I'm chatting with Jennifer Burke. She's the Chief Revenue Officer at Faire. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We have so much we're going to go through. I'm just going to lay this out for everyone. We're going to talk a little bit about you and the work that you do. We're going to talk about Faire and how it plugs into businesses that are small, that are big. We're going to talk about indie retail, which is the channel that Faire is really helping these brands scale up, and some case studies about how Faire is being used. And the big one that I think everyone's going to want to listen to is how to win on Faire. Profile optimization, the things you need to be doing, all the stuff that we are like trying to figure out on YouTube and Google. And we have you here to actually set the record straight about what works. And then you have a couple of resources for us as well. So it's going to be a really good, really practical workshopy episode, which we love.
Lots of really good topics, and particularly the last one. I get that question a lot.
Yeah.
How do I do better on Faire?
I bet. Okay, let's talk a little bit about you, your origin story, your background. What's a Chief Revenue Officer? Who are you? What do you do?
So yeah, I'm the CRO of Faire, and it sounds like most of your listeners and viewers are aware of Faire, but if not, we're the largest online wholesale platform that connects consumer brands across sizes and categories with independent retail stores now all across the world. In my role as CRO, I oversee all of our customer-facing commercial teams. So the individuals that brands and retailers engage with one-on-one to help them optimize their performance on Faire. So we help brands onboard to the platform, set them up for success, manage their day-to-day performance once they're live. And then we have a team that does that as well on the retailer side, educating them on the value props of Faire and actually helping them with their first few orders. My origin story, so I've been at Faire 6 years, but I started my career 20 years ago. And probably like most people, like my career has not been linear. I have no idea what I wanted to do out of school. I found that I was a creative person and I really liked businesses. And so ended up somewhat by luck, somewhat intention, working for Disney. And then in advertising for a couple of years. And it was great. I really learned a lot, like enjoyed those positions, but I never felt like it was like that job that I could be totally fulfilled and enthralled by. So I ended up going to business school, like a lot of people who don't really know what they want to do when they grow up, and then spent 2 years in consulting and landed in startup world in 2014. So I joined a company called ClassPass, which are you familiar?
Of course.
ClassPass,
yes.
Yeah. A lot of people who like to work out know ClassPass. It was at the time a multi-studio fitness membership. So you could hop around to multiple studios in your city. And I joined when we were just 15 people. They just raised a Series A, and we had a couple of studios that we were working with in New York. And I joined in sales, which my parents were like, what are you doing? Like you just came from business school and consulting, and now you're going into sales. And it really was when I found my like ikagi. Have you heard of that term?
Yeah, explain it though.
Okay, yeah. It's a Japanese term that means the intersection of what you enjoy doing, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for.
Yeah, it's such a good framework to use when you're trying to figure out like what you want to do with your life.
Yeah, especially when you're like careers are really freaking long.
Yeah.
And I stole that. I heard Sarah Fryer talk about ikagi, and I might be butchering the term, on a podcast. Sarah Fryer is the CFO of OpenAI, was the CEO of Nextdoor, so she's a big deal. But I found that at ClassPass, and it was really like 3 things that resonated with me. One is I got to work with small businesses and entrepreneurs like every single day. So individuals that were bringing their passion and their story to life. And I don't think I could ever be an entrepreneur. I just like don't have it in my like DNA. But it's incredibly inspiring to work with those people and see them put their blood, sweat, and tears into their business. So I just really enjoyed that. Um, the second was I found out I really liked sales. And I think people often have this vision of sales as like the car salesman trying to trick you in terms of
Yeah.
price. But it's so much different than that, particularly when you're working with these small businesses. It's around like figuring out what their goals are, asking great questions, and ultimately helping them problem solve their challenges with your product solution. And it's like that co-creation process that really like intrigues me. And then the last is like I found the intellectual challenge of being at a marketplace really compelling, where you're trying to generate value for both sides, but also extract it for yourself. And kind of how do you think about that yin and yang?
Yeah.
So yeah, I was 5 years there, and then found Faire, and it had all of those ingredients and more. And it's really what has kept me here for so long.
Let's talk about Faire a little bit more. For people, I mean, everyone I think at least has some understanding of what Faire is and what you guys do, but I I kind of want to dig a little bit in and show people the scale of what you're doing and the number of brands you're working with and like how big Faire is, because it's really driving an impact for a lot of people. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when I joined back in 2019, I thought we were big. Like we were doing a few $1 million in sales. We had 1,000 vendors, I think 50,000 retailers. But today we have over 100,000 vendors, hundreds of thousands of retailers.
Oh, that's a lot of
And
growth in 5 years.
yes, exactly. It's been a crazy journey. But we also do now billions of dollars in sales annually and growing like 30 to 40% still year over year.
Yeah.
So it's just been a kind of crazy journey.
Could you share a little bit about Faire's origin story? Like, where did this platform come from? Who started it? How did it all come
Yeah.
about?
I love this story because it really helps inform our overall mission. So Max Rhodes, who's our CEO and one of the co-founders of Faire, he told the story, like he always wanted to be an entrepreneur, always wanted to start a business. And after college, he went into consulting. He worked for Square. I'm sure most people are very familiar with Square as a product manager. But while he was there, he started to do a side hustle. And that side hustle was bringing blunt umbrellas. Do you know them? They're actually great. I used one to walk to work today because of the rain. But bringing them from Australia to
There you
the
go.
United States. And within that, he was going to trade shows as well as calling up retailers, like literally cold calling them, trying to get distribution. And he was like, there has to be a better way. This is a really great product, but it doesn't have the resourcing or the brand name that a lot of these bigger guys do. And so he's in this like little booth and nobody knows who he is. And he's like trying to get people to stop by. And that was the origin of Faire. Like there has to be
Wow.
a better way. And he and 3 other folks from Square all came together and built the Faire platform.
That's such a cool story. When did it start?
2017.
Okay, so you joined pretty soon after.
Yeah, 2019.
Yeah.
Although I can't take credit for early days. But if you talk to Max, like our CEO, on what it is that Faire does, he would start by talking about why we're doing what we're doing and who we built this product for. And ultimately, everything that we do is in pursuit of helping these small businesses be more successful. And this like core belief that it is better to live in a world where there are these small, cute boutiques and restaurants on the main streets in America versus these like strip malls and banks and what we call like the sea of sameness.
Mm-hmm.
Not that there's anything wrong with strip malls and banks, but there's a lot of challenges that these businesses have. And the things that we focus on, we think we are uniquely positioned to do as a technology company are like 3 main focuses for brands and retailers. The first is around just discovery and connection. We want to be the endless aisle, one-stop shop for wholesale, where any retailer, no matter their price point, their aesthetic, where they're located, can find the inventory that they're seeking on Faire. And we do that by adding a lot of supply, but ultimately trying to matchmake retailers with brands that we think will have a high sell-through to their end customer, like ultimately driving top-line sales for retailers. And we do that because we have a lot of data. We know what retailers are clicking on, what they're searching. And so the experience actually gets better and better the more you use it. So that's the first one. The second is we focus on how do we provide more financial value to both sides and ultimately use our scale to take costs and risks out of the ecosystem. And we have a bunch of ways that we do that, but probably the ones that are most common and most impactful are, first, every retailer gets net 60 terms when they sign up for Faire. So they have 60 days to hopefully sell the product that they purchase before they owe us a dime. And it like flips this working capital model on its head where, prior to that, you'd have to actually front the capital before you actually get paid yourself. So we do that, but we guarantee payouts to brands. And so brands could do this themselves, but then they're taking on the working capital risk. And instead, we do the underwriting, we figure out the kind of credit amounts, we chase down credit cards, and then if the retailers default on us, we take that risk away from our vendors. The other thing that we do in the space, we have a free shipping program, very similar to Amazon Prime, where retailers pay a fee and they get free shipping on a subset of products. But we fund the shipping for new retailers. We don't pass that cost on to brands. And again, it's this idea of how do you give more value to retailers, help them save money, improve working capital, but take that risk away from the supply side.
Amazing.
And then the third thing that we focus on, we're a technology company, so we're ultimately trying to be more than a marketplace. Like, we are trying to be the platform that retailers and brands can use to run their wholesale business more effectively. So we plug into their ERP systems on the brand side. We have a big partnership with Shopify. We also plug into POS systems on the retailer end. And then we're continuing to build different tools and programs that these retailers and brands can use to run their business more successfully on Faire.
I love talking about indie retail because I constantly hear from brands in our community. They are they want to get into Target, they want to get into Walmart, Sephora, which is amazing. And there is a time and a place for that. But when I talk to brands who are more established, like, for example, Bala is an example of a brand that that I've spoken with and done a lot of programming around this kind of topic with. And they're in like Target and big stores, but they're also really focused on indie retail. And they use that as this channel that is building brand and building community. And it is like actually like a huge part of the business in terms of revenue as well. And I want to talk about that a little bit because I think people kind of think, oh, I'll just get into a few like cute mom and pop stores and it'll be great and I'll like whatever. No, this is a massive opportunity for brands.
Channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey besties, it's Jasmine. I'm jumping in with a message from one of my favorite brands and our sponsor on the show today. Faire is the one-stop shop for wholesale. They connect over 100,000 unique brands with retailers and give small businesses a platform to thrive and to scale. And if you listen to the show, you already know I'm a huge advocate for Faire, and you know that I love indie retail strategies, especially for female founders who are scaling their brands. Building relationships with retailers just takes time that most of us don't have. Faire expands your reach to over 700,000 retailers globally, all on one platform, and these are retailers that are already actively looking for brands like yours. Plus, Faire reduces risk with net 60 terms for buyers and on-time payments for you, so that means you never have to chase an invoice from a retailer ever again. It's your all-in-one platform for wholesale. Plus, over half of Faire's brands are women-owned, so you're joining a thriving community. Start growing today at faire.com/FFW. That's FAIRE.com/FFW, or click the link in the show notes.
So independent retailer, we tell our brands that there's really two main benefits for focusing on your independent strategy. The first, as you mentioned, it's just the scale. We've done some research here, and we think that the overall addressable market is $400 billion in volume. That's a global number, but the US is the biggest market. And so just like a lot of dollars flowing to independent boutiques. And I love this stat, but we have more doors shopping on Faire than Starbucks, 7-Eleven, Walgreens, Target, Walmart combined.
Wow.
And so just the sheer number of doors is massive. But the second reason that I think independent retailer is so compelling is these boutiques are really the tastemakers of their community and help curate really unique brands and inventory that maybe you can't find in the big stores or aren't on Amazon, or help up level, even if you are. And we've had so many amazing stories from our brands on how they've seen a halo effect after they've invested in their boutique strategy. And so one example that I love is we work with this brand called Mescla. They're a protein bar based out of Texas, and they joined Faire. They got into a couple of stores, including this restaurant cafe called Juiceland. And one of the Whole Foods buyers went into Juiceland, bought the bar, really loved it, thought the product tasted great, and the packaging was awesome, reached out to Mescla, and now they're in, I think, all of the Whole Foods stores in Texas. And those stores happen all the time where they join Faire for access to the independent channel, but it actually boosts their direct-to-consumer business as well as their major account business.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like this discovery channel. And also, I think like people kind of sleep on the fact that tastemakers, gatekeepers, like they are looking to a lot of these stores in the same way that they might be looking to, if you're in beauty, like reading Allure's Best of Beauty Roundup to discover new brands. Like this is a place where you can get seen by people who make decisions at big retailers, in press, investors. Like this is a really important part of that brand strategy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that think of it from your perspective, like when you're walking down any like neighborhood in your city and you just walk into one of these stores and it's so well curated and it's all these products that you haven't seen. It's like you buy it and then maybe you reorder directly or you go back to that store, and there's something fun about the discovery process, like as a consumer too, and the loyalty that you have to some of these small businesses where you live.
Something else that I really like about indie as well. So when you're trying to get into these big kind of mass chain retail stores, you're kind of at the mercy of some gatekeeper who's making this decision. It might be like 3 people or 1 person that makes
Totally.
the decision, and you're just kind of hoping that your email like resonates with them, or that you know someone who knows someone. Whereas there's so much more control around an indie strategy where you can actually scale it up. It's predictable. And it's kind of this lower risk way of building out your wholesale business compared to going into a mass retailer early, where you have to front like big marketing fees. Like often the terms are not very
They're
favorable.
onerous.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're not like super favorable to small business. And so you have this massive channel which is delivering predictable revenue. It's building your brand. You can use a platform like Faire, which takes away all of the logistical stuff that was stopping brands from scaling this. Like it really just feels like a no-brainer.
Yeah. I think one thing I'll add to that is something we hear from vendors who work with big box retailers is often they have to go through brokers or distributors or some third party,
Mhm.
and they actually don't know what's happening with their product in the store.
Yeah.
Like they don't know how it's merchandised. They don't get sell-through information. They don't know who's buying it. And that's very different than the experience when you work directly with an independent retailer. And we make it very easy on Faire to have one-on-one conversations, to give merchandising advice, to talk through questions on your order or products. And I think that brands really like that one-on-one connection that they can build with independents. And we facilitate that more easily in our platform.
So it's not just kind of small brands that are using Faire. You also have big brands using. Can you talk me through like the different use cases and how people use the platform, just so people can get an understanding of, okay, like what can I go and do now?
Yeah, absolutely. We are really trying to be the one-stop shop for wholesale where any brand of any size can be successful. And we have various kind of personas of brands that join Faire for very different goals or use cases. So we have the kind of Etsy type brands who are doing this part-time and trying to increase their distribution, who join and have never actually been in a store before. And they're using us for access. And we have big brands who have heavy distribution in majors. Maybe they even work with reps and they go to shows, but they're using us to access the long tail of retailers that their reps and shows aren't filling. And then we have brands who actually use us for 100% of their wholesale business, where they've shifted their existing retailer base that they were facilitating orders with outside of Faire onto Faire as just a more efficient play to manage their entire independent business.
I want to talk a little bit more about some of the brands that are using Faire. If you have any more case studies or examples about what people are doing and the impact that it's having on the business.
Yeah. And maybe I can use those
Yeah.
personas as examples. So in terms of like a really big brand, we work with a brand named Kitsch. It's a massive wholesale brand. If you're a boutique, you definitely knew them before Faire was around. They go to shows and they've done nearly $40 million in sales since they joined the platform back in 2019 through Faire.
Wow.
But they also have other channels that they stand up. They're a multi-million-dollar business. In terms of the ones that are shifting their business to Faire, we work with a brand, Itsy Ritzy, in the kids and baby space. They started actually with a business outside of Faire, shows and reps, and over time have kind of migrated that business to Faire to just run it more efficiently. And then the last, another food and beverage brand, fun story. There's a olive oil brand in New York called Graza.
Yes, I think everyone knows
Yes.
Graza.
But they were kind of new. They were more like trying to figure out D2C
They did
and
like
the wholesale
plastic
strategy.
squeezy bottle.
Yes.
That's what they were known for.
And they used Faire to start to get into these independents and literally like cold calling stores. And then they've been able to scale on Faire, and now I think cumulatively have done over $1 million in sales.
Wow, that's so cool. Okay, everyone's sold. Everyone's like, okay, how do I
do better?
This week, my focus is figuring out Faire. How does a brand win on Faire?
Yeah.
You mentioned at the beginning of the show that you're a tech platform and your goal is obviously to match retailers with the right brands and products that they actually want to like purchase and then purchase again.
That's
So
right.
it's an algorithm, like in the same way that everything that we're doing is driven by algorithms. And I'm wondering if there are things that we can do to perform better.
Yes. I know I mentioned this at the start, but is the number one question that my team gets, which is, how do I perform better on Faire? And there is a lot here, so interrupt me, ask questions. But I'll talk about it in kind of 3 ways. First is there are just foundational things you need to do to set your business up for success on Faire. The second is we have a lot of free tools that you can use to grow your sales, both on and off the Faire platform. And then the third is we've recently launched some paid programs where you can boost your performance further. So I'll start with the first bucket of just the foundational things. The most important thing that you can do to have success on Faire is to optimize and invest in your shop page. And it starts with making sure your full catalog is up on Faire and you have pricing parity with your direct channels. And the reason that is so important is because retailers are landing on your page. They're giving it a couple of seconds to determine, like, should I spend more time here? And if they even have an inkling that you don't have your full catalog up or the right pricing, it seems really high, they're not going direct to your site. They're just checking out another vendor on Faire. So you need to put your best foot forward, just starting there. And then there's ways you should think about, how do I optimize my search and ranking on Faire? And 3 best practices here. The first is make sure your photography looks good. And that includes things like got good lighting, that it's actually centered in the middle of the photo, that it's close up enough that you can evaluate what it is as you're scrolling on mobile, and that there's multiple images of that product. And it's different than a direct-to-consumer experience where maybe they just care about the product. This is a retailer who also wants to know, what does the packaging look like? Is that compelling? Or, what is the size of it? Could this sit on my shelf? And having lifestyle imagery to get proportions is actually really critical for evaluation. So think through that. It's different than your D2C strategy. The second is product descriptions should be robust. That is how we figure out whether to retrieve your product in search. And so make sure that they have a full description. You're talking about why the product benefits the end consumer. Maybe you're adding something about kind of packaging or nutritional details if you're a kind of food brand. And then the third piece is be mindful of your minimums. So minimums are basically a dollar amount that retailers need to spend in order to be able to access your wholesale pricing and checkout. And because this is an online platform and they haven't touched and felt the product or smelled the candle, they're always still a little bit hesitant to spend a ton on that first purchase, even though they have net 60 terms and free returns. And so if you have a really high minimum, specifically compared to your price point, people will be nervous to buy. And so we recommend between $150 to $200 in terms of your minimum. But again, If you have a $2 average price point, that's high. If you have a $100 average price point, that's low. So think about it for your unique business. So that's the first thing. Just set up your shop page so that it is high quality and optimized for search. The second is we have a bunch of tools that brands can use for free, as I mentioned, to ultimately grow their sales on Faire. The first is our suite of marketing and CRM tools. And what's cool about Faire is that when a retailer places an order with you, you get all of this information about them in your CRM system. So you can see not just like where they're located, but what store type. Do they have items in the cart with you that you should push them to check out with? Or are they an insider? Do they get free shipping with your brand? And then we have these like marketing campaigns and messaging features so you can start to actually segment your audience and target them with really specific messages. So for instance, these retailers used to place a bunch of orders last year, but haven't placed any orders this year. You can segment that and then send them a promotion. Or I'm launching a bunch of new products and I want all of my really high spending retailers to know about them. Again, segment by spend and send them an update. So we really do try to make it easy for you, again, to have that like engagement directly with the retail customers on Faire. The second free tool we offer, we call it Faire Direct. Basically a suite of order taking tools that you can use off the Faire platform. So it includes a link that if you send to retailers, it directs to your shop page. But the amazing thing is that it's all at 0% commission to the brand. So you're able to provide benefits of Faire, like the net 60 terms and free returns. But because these are customers you're driving, either your existing customers or when you're prospecting off of the marketplace, we don't believe that we earn commission on that relationship. So we don't charge you anything. And we're continuing to build out more and more tools under this umbrella. So now we actually have a mobile app where if you're at a show or you're facilitating in-person orders, you can literally like take a picture of an order form and it automatically creates a cart for you for that retailer. Yes, it's very cool. AI is coming for us and we're investing more and more in it as a platform. But then you can have the retailer take a picture of the QR code and transact really easily, like literally within minutes. And then the last thing on this, we now have a website widget, if you're a Shopify user, that you can customize that actually shows your Faire shop page. So you don't need to invest in a specific wholesale website if you have a D2C one. You can just direct traffic there, use Faire as your wholesale website experience, and again, at 0%. So majority of our brands use that. And I think that we've looked at this, but for brands who use Faire Direct actively, they're doing 50% more in sales on Faire. So very powerful. And then the last suite of tools, these are our paid tools, optional. But if you're looking for like the extra boost, it's definitely worth investing in. The first is last year, we launched paid advertising. I think most brands are familiar with how paid advertising works. It's on most marketplaces, but it's a pay-per-click model. You set a budget on a weekly basis, a monthly basis. It could be as low as $200. It could be as high as $20,000, $30,000. It's really about your marketing budget and appetite. And then we boost you in ranking when there is a relevant search for your product. So if organically we think that you should be on page 5 because of other signals we have on your kind of conversion and match for that retailer, we would boost you to like page 1 or 2 so that you get overall more impressions. It's been like an extremely impactful product launch. I think now we have 7,000 brands who have spent money on paid. One brand ran a test. They didn't like believe in our data. Cheese Brothers from Wisconsin. They do like dill Havarti and honey glazed sriracha cheese. Very cool things. And they saw during their test that we were able to increase customer acquisition by 50%.
Wow.
So it's very powerful. Average customer acquisition cost is like $80 to $100, and people are seeing return on ad spend as much as like 5x or higher. So like a really great product for folks. And then the last one, and I know I've been chatting for a while, but you can then ask me questions about, but I assume that this is what people want to hear. The last is we launched this partnership program called Insider Partnership. As mentioned, Insider is like our free shipping program. What we now allow brands to do is they can co-fund shipping with us. So they pay for free shipping on their Faire direct orders. So all of the orders where we're not taking commission, it's at 0%. And if they do that, we then boost the coverage that they get on Insider for new retailers. And the boost kind of varies, but on average, it's about 2x more customers that get access to their product with free shipping on Faire when they cover free shipping for their 0% relationships.
Okay, this is amazing. This is the stuff I think that people really, really want to hear. So thank you for sharing all of that. Is it true that you mentioned like you can bring your own retailers to Faire, and if you didn't spark the relationship, there's no commission. Does it help boost your profile in Faire if you're bringing more people to the platform? Like, does that do anything?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that question because I missed that talking point. So if you use Faire Direct actively, and if you are inviting existing retailers or retailers with high intent to purchase, that increases your overall kind of conversion. So the number of retailers that land on your page, how many of them are actually ordering. And conversion is the number one input into how we determine ranking, because we think it's a good signal of both relevancy, like, okay, you should have been ranked highly for this search term, and quality, like when people are landing on your page, they're actually purchasing. So when brands are using Faire Direct, we see a much higher ranking for them because the conversion from the retailers that they invite is so high. So it's a great way both to drive more orders at 0%, but also to boost your marketplace performance.
Amazing. Okay, that's really good to know. What about keywords? Does it make a difference? Seasonal keywords?
Yeah, we get this question a lot because brands will try to keyword stuff. So they'll add like Christmas or Halloween or Mother's Day into the product descriptions. I will say it helps when it is relevant. And so if you have a really amazing ornament, you should have Christmas in the product description.
Makes sense.
But if you are selling a random blanket or, I don't know, throw pillow, saying this is a Christmas pillow when it's of like birds, like is not going to really make a difference. So you could get pulled in ranking, but your conversion will probably be lower. And so short term, it will help you. Long term, it will hurt you.
Do you suggest that people go and have a look at other brands in their categories and kind of like see what comes up at the top of the search results and just compare? Because I think sometimes you can talk about make sure you've got robust descriptions and make sure your images look great and all of that. But like until you tangibly see like, oh, this is who shows up on the first page versus this is what my shop page looks like, that kind of like helps you actually realize like the gap between where you are and where the people doing really well on the platform are.
Yes, I always think it's helpful to kind of log in as a retailer and just look around and see what other brands are doing. I'll give one example. There's this brand, Love Pop. They do stationery and cards, but they're 3D. And what they did is rather than add just 4 static product images, they made one of them a GIF. So you can actually see what the card looks like when it opens.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like those little things that I would have never thought to recommend to a brand because I just didn't think of it. And then you see a brand do it and you're like, oh, actually, that's extremely powerful because you could add a GIF of someone wearing your really nice dress and like doing a 360 turn. And now you see how it flows. So I definitely would suggest it. The best ideas end up coming from our brands, even though we think that we know everything. So sign in. You can't place an order if you're not a retailer, but you can play around with the site and get inspiration.
Jen, this is so helpful. The last thing I want to ask you is for a resource recommendation, something that's helped you as you've been building your career that you think is helpful to the small businesses that you work with that you think we should go and check out.
Yeah. So I have 2 books that I go back to frequently. The first is a business book called The Score Takes Care of Itself by Bill Walsh, who was a football coach. And it was actually mandatory reading when I started Faire. Max made every employee read it early days. And what he talks about is the inputs often matter more than the outputs. So if you are just sweating the scoreboard, and particularly in sales, that happens a lot, right? You're like looking at your goals every single day, every single month. That's actually not quite productive. And instead, what you should focus on are what are the inputs that drive the outputs and how do I raise the bar on them and focus on them maniacally. And if you do that, the outputs will come. And I see that like in my job and with my team, where if we just focus on connecting with customers, having quality conversations, following up in a timely manner, effectively, like we do see the numbers move. And I try to remind people that, like, when you're stressed about the outcomes, focus on the inputs. So that's the first. And then the second is a parenting book. It's called How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. And it's been valuable for me both in raising my kids, but also at work. And there's two takeaways from it that resonate deeply. One is that to be a great leader, or be a great parent, like you need to be present in it with people. And that includes like asking questions, but just being empathetic and understanding where the other person is coming from. Because sometimes like a big deal to them wouldn't be a big deal to you and vice versa. And so being present and like asking questions and really deeply trying to understand where someone's coming from, I think is really critical in sales and in parenting. And then the other is co-creating solutions together. And I think about this with me and people in my life when they try to prescribe a solution to me, it's like, I'm like allergic to it. But when you're asking questions and trying to figure it out together with your kid, whether it's a 4-year-old or with your employee who's 35, all of a sudden you're like, okay, I want to get to the answer with you. And they feel like you're on their side versus like across from you. And I think that I'm not great at it all the time, but I try to remind myself of like the empathy piece and co-create solutions together.
I love that. First parenting book I've had recommended on the show before. So
It's great. You should read it.
Awesome. Jen, thank you so much for chatting with me. This has been the most helpful, practical boot camp in all things Faire. And I just know that everyone's listening with their notes app open, taking notes on this. So seriously, like, thank you for not gatekeeping any of this. I know it's going to be so helpful.
Awesome. This was really fun.